Thank you for joining us, Sue. We're talking about apprenticeships in the leisure industry and with a bit of twist of the digital impact as well that you guys have added to your program list that you do for your apprentices. Can you start off by introducing who you are and your job role and background?
I'm Sue Burton. I am the apprenticeship manager for David Lloyd Clubs. I've been here for just under 6 years. I've worked in the world of apprenticeships now for about 15 years, so have always been on the employer side. So like to see myself as a key ambassador for driving apprenticeships through employment.
So 15 years in apprenticeships. What keeps you motivated to keep going?
I think for me, it's the value that they add. Not everyone is academic, and I did, it was an apprenticeship, but I did a vocational qualification when I came out and working in the world of hospitality, and that really gave me some kind of validation, if you like, and reassurance that I probably knew more than I realised, and the confidence by gaining that vocational qualification. And I've seen so many people over the years really gain so much by doing an apprenticeship, being able to get their learning through a vocational route and really supporting their progression of their career through all sorts of different routes and industries over the years.
Brilliant. So David Lloyd is where we are today.
Yeah.
Absolute huge brand in the leisure industry, well known, now expanded into Europe as well. Why are apprenticeships so important to a business like David Lloyd?
Apprenticeships are really important to us at David Lloyd in the respect that it brings so much to the table. The investment of our levy back into our team helps support their growth and the skills growth for the future skills that we need as a business. It also supports the engagement of team, makes them feel valued, and also for some people it gives them that accreditation and that qualification that they may never have got the opportunity to get, or maybe they're just looking to change their direction in their career, and again it gives them those formal recognised qualifications alongside that development and learning growth.
Great. So I know at David Lloyd you guys have tailored your program around your learnings and very specific to your business model. So what's kind of the process behind making the best program possible for your team members?
I think for me, to find a program or make the program work, there's lots of different things to consider. First of all, the delivery style. You need to make sure there are so many different providers out there offering programs, but the delivery style will vary. And you need to make sure that delivery style works with your business and your teams so that they'll be able to get the best learning experience. I think it's also understanding what you can bring in from a business knowledge and training activity as well. It needs to feel that it's adding value and it's relevant to their role or their progression, so they're really going to see what they're going to get out of that. I think looking at everything from an application process, what does that look like? The information around it for both the learner and the line manager, and also sharing with the business what that impact's going to be. And that's when it makes the real difference. Finding a provider that will also help you contextualise that learning and make those adaptations and understand you as a business, goes a really long way. We're really lucky with our relationship and our partnership with Remit Training in respect that for our programmes, we've worked with different levels within the business, from the curriculum team to the accounts team to the DCs, the coaches that deliver our programme, to get them to understand David Lloyd as a business. And this has involved us doing familiarisation sessions. This is them meeting managers in clubs and understanding what does it look like to be a day in the life of a duty management within the business at David Lloyd? What are the challenges that they face? What are the situations and scenarios they face? We've done things such as getting them to understand our vision, our value and our culture as a business, to really understand how they can work with us. What this has given us is the opportunity for us to look at the right time for us to have sessions with our teams, when to avoid peak sessions that are going to impact the business or they might be not able to concentrate as much, and we've really been able to tailor that approach all the way through.
So that works great at top level. How does that work and translate to the actual clubs? So in terms of getting that relationship right between yourselves, Remit and club level, so allowing the managers at club level to give the freedom of having an apprentice on program, because obviously there's quite a lot of time constraint pulling someone off, especially January. We're filming this in January. What does that mean in terms of that kind of support?
So for us, that means that before we get someone on the program, there is a lot of work done to make sure that the general manager is aware of the programme and they approve of who's going on this separate programme. Their line managers are engaged as well, so they're aware of the programme. They get taken through an overview of the programme, the workshops, the attendance at workshops, how many sessions they're going to have with their coach, what does that look like, so all of that can be pre-planned. We also do a session with the learners as well, so that they understand, like an information awareness session that we run, these spotlight sessions, and that we try and get all of the learners on one of those sessions before they enrol. Again, really explain to them, what are we asking for them, what does that commitment look like, and what are their expectations, what they're going to have to do, what does that workload look like. We also make sure that they have a good relationship and a connection with their development coach, so they can, on a one-to-one club basis, the managers, the learners can align those times and those sessions to meet their needs. And for our Step Up programme, which is our team leader management development programme that we run with the apprenticeship with Remit, we also have these general manager champions across our business who within each region look after the programme. So again, they have regular contact as well with their development coach, building relationships, sharing feedback and evaluating and approving where we need to.
Yeah, and I completely see that. I attended your graduation, interviewed some of them regional managers, and you can really see the passion behind supporting the learners, and I think that's so important. In terms of day-to-day support then from Remit, what does that kind of look like in terms of picking up the phone, if there's an issue with a learner, what support's there from a day-to-day perspective?
So how that works is initially from an account level, we have a summary. So we work really closely with the team there, and myself and Maisie also involved in ensuring that we know where the learners are up to, where any challenges. We also communicate that back to our GM champions, our GMs in club and line managers, but also the development coaches have those conversations as well. So they're coming from different levels to make sure that we're consistent, and that if we need to review time sessions or we need to adjust timescales for someone due to situations that occur, because everyone has a life outside their apprenticeship as well. Absolutely. They're doing a busy role within club, as well as their studies and their qualification. And you know what, sometimes we just need to adjust that and remember that everyone's human, and sometimes there can be situations where we just need to adjust the timescale to work with somebody. It can be as simple as adjusting times, it's slightly extending a deadline, but it's about being able to make that tweak to make sure it's right for that individual.
I suppose that's absolutely right. I think one of the key selling points we lean on apprenticeships is earning while you're learning, but then kind of a flip side to that is actually trying to do a full-time job and you're trying to learn at the same time. So it's trying to find the balance of making sure that I'm still 100% efficient at work, but still doing the learning. But again, so on that, do you see a direct impact that you can see straight away from a learner being on programme to then implementing that into their day-to-day role?
I think there's a slight delay because they've got to learn the knowledge in the background first before you can start to apply that and add that back into the business. So I think there's a couple of things there. So what we've done is we've worked really closely around the curriculum to make sure we've created activity sheets. So the assignments that they need to do for their qualification are embedded in there, but we've really pulled out, well, what activity will they do in the club to be able to demonstrate that learning and apply it back into their day role. And we are really starting to see that come to value now and fruition, and see the impact that that's making for individuals. We see quite a few people progress from the Step Up to HOD programme. We share who's on the programme across the business, and our people business partners, our GM champions, will drive their development as well. The GM champions will pick up with them and have separate kind of catch-up sessions to see how they're getting on, and we'll share the progress across the regions as well. What we have worked really hard on is trying to make sure there's that consistent. So apprenticeships should have allocated time within their working week to do their apprenticeship programme. This can flex a little bit depending on the needs of the business, but also the needs of their apprenticeship at that time. So that for us, that can incorporate time for attending their workshops, submitting their assignments. It could be doing their activities, and it might be shadowing somebody in club and learning a new skill that they're doing as they progress. But it's just about ensuring that that communication is there so the learner gets that experience, the balance between the impact on the business, but making sure that actually the learner is being able to get that time and progress with their programme and demonstrate their learning back to what they are able to do.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is And the thing I noticed the most was trying to get a grip and understanding the 20% off the job. And every business had to adapt very differently. So how did you guys kind of adapt in terms of the 20% off the job?
So for us, I think that there's a widely confusion around off the job. So for us, it's learning hours, it's learning time. For anybody progressing in their career, as a business, you invest in them and give them time to learn things. So if they were progressing and developing and learning a new role from a different area, they'll go through different training. That's really important. And for us, it's about learning time, so investing in that time. So we've actually created an animated guide for our managers and learners to explain what does that look like. So roughly for us, we go on the basis, it's approximately, and each qualification is different, I have to say, because of the balance and the way that the program is delivered. But on average, 3 hours theoretical a week, 3 hours of your knowledge, it might be self-teach, it might be online learning, it might be podcasting, all sorts of different learning that knowledge, detail that you need to know. And then 3 hours technically is around how to apply that, where are you going to use that skills, where's that knowledge going to come in. So it takes a little while for it to establish. So at the start, you're going to be heavier based on knowledge, but ultimately, that's kind of the communication we give to the business. We do try to ensure that for each program, we give some guidance as to what sort of activities for that job role will that look like, just to support our managers to make sure that they can understand what does that going to mean to them in real terms.
Yeah, great stuff. So I mentioned the graduation briefly. Let's talk about it. I mean, it was such a great day down in Milton Keynes. Was it your first graduation that you held?
It was the first graduation for the apprenticeship that we'd had for the Step Up programme. So we kind of had two people from two groups come together for that one. So we had just over 50, I think 55, 56 people in total attend. And it's just really great to see people come together, to be able to talk to the teams that have been on the programme, understand their experiences, how they've been able to take that learning, see how many of them have progressed and promoted and become HFDs in our business, which is fantastic. So, and really just see the excitement around it, the culmination of all that effort and time put into their learning, and come together, full-on celebration, caps and gowns, and really celebrate in style. I think it's really important. I think sometimes it's easy to forget that actually the amount it takes from somebody to learn, just to do their programme, do their role, and actually we just sometimes need to take a minute and pause and say, well done, wow, look at what you've done, and give them the opportunity to be in the spotlight. I really enjoy hearing about our apprentice experiences. I love hearing about the impact it's made for individuals and the difference that it makes to them, and how that they've been able to help them with their career or their progression. For me, that's kind of the biggest reward of the role that I do. So
on promotions, is there a clear pathway for the business? Is that the goal? So put people on this, they get promotions, and you really kind of craft in the ideal leaders and managers for David Lloyd. Was that kind of the initial thought when you took on the programme?
Yes, so the Step Up programme is designed to take our kind of high performing or those with potential to become our future head of departments. So there is an application process. It's not a case of everyone can do it. There is obviously other routes for people to do kind of a team leader or management programs, but this particular programme is aimed at the kind of that range of people. And what we do is they are then put on a programme. There is face-to-face workshops. They have 6 face-to-face workshops throughout the course of the programme, as well as having remote online teaching sessions with their development coach from Remit, and doing their work alongside it. It is all around us preparing our future managers. As a business, we are growing. There are other routes to progression too. But what we have done is over the last kind of 18 months or so, we've really built and redefined our career pathways. Can we really see the route that they'll go through? And apprenticeships are built into those career pathways. Some of them are mainly around that progression to the next role, but ultimately there are also a recruitment and entry-level routes into those programs as well. So we have development programs for supervisors or to become a supervisor, and the step to HOD is one of the key routes to be able to support people to that next stage.
So when you took over the programme, 30-something learners,
About 37 when I initially joined the business back in 2019.
And
So
how many now?
we have 317 apprentices in learning currently.
What's it like? I mean, that's to grow from, you've literally, tenfold on what you started with. What's it like from now? What were the kind of teething pains and how did you overcome? So talking to other businesses now that are looking to rapidly grow their programs. So someone that might have 10 learners on now, but with like 100 in a year's time, what is kind of the advice to them in terms of growth?
You need to have the business on board as to why it's important and the benefits behind it. And I think that's the real key thing. Widely out there in society, there's still a massive misconception about an apprenticeship and what it is, that it is just a school leaver route. Now, it is really important, the career starter element of apprenticeships, getting people into businesses on an apprenticeship, that's a really valuable route, and it's something that actually is part of our strategy we are focusing on. However, there is so much more to it. Anybody can do an apprenticeship who is within the right criteria. So, you can be in your 60s and do an apprenticeship technically. And there's this misconception there that actually it's just for somebody who's not done very well at school. So the myth busting is crucial. And that's one of the key things that I started with the business, is trying to dispel some of those myths. And you need to build it slowly. It is not about a bums on seats activity. So although we've grown quite a lot, that's taken a number of years to do so. It's around the right program for the right person, and the right programs for your business. So I'm contacted on a regular basis that we can offer you this program, we can offer you that program. For me, it's about making sure that they're right. Are they right for the business? Are they right for the job roles? Are we setting someone up to success? Are they able to start that apprenticeship and actually finish it and apply that learning back into the business? Because if they're not, then actually we're not doing that learner any favour. So ultimately, for me, it's about right programs. It's about making sure that people are set up for success, the business is on board and understands their role to play in it as well. So what are we committing to, and actually what benefits will they see, and just challenging some of that perception.
Yeah, understandable. Again, when I was in school, there was a common misconception around apprenticeships that were for bricklayers or plumbers, and I think if I was educated properly around apprenticeships, I probably would have gone down a different route and not gone to university, because especially in my area of content creation, you don't particularly need a degree. It's about the learnings and the ability to create that content, because ultimately, if I was looking for a job now, someone wouldn't ask me for my qualifications, they would ask for a show reel or a portfolio of content, and I think that makes a massive difference, because I'm now £50,000 in debt, whereas someone, again, leading on to what you guys do internally, does a content creator apprenticeship or a digital apprenticeship, then they wouldn't have the debt that I have now. So in terms of the now kind of the transition technologies, how are you using digital apprenticeships within David Lloyd?
So it actually probably is still fairly early days for us, but what we are seeing is some of our marketing is obviously done kind of online. We've got a few team members within our clubs now doing content creation in respect that they will follow the framework set by our marketing team, but the clubs will manage some of their social media themselves. So it's about enabling them the skill set to be able to do that efficiently. But we have then more of our senior teams on things such as the cybersecurity degree apprenticeship. So there are so many opportunities. I also see lots of people now, lots of providers now looking at adding in additional modules into the apprenticeships as well around things like AI as that whole world grows. In our industry, digital is a big thing anyway, and we're really seeing that impact what we do through apps and access, digital access to the clubs, digital access to ordering food. The involvement, the evolution, if you like, of the digital skills is huge, and I think that's just going to grow over time. So it's about looking at what can work with the roles that we have to be able to give some of those future-facing skills back to our teams and set them up for success in what they're doing, but give them some skills that's going to help us grow in that route as well.
I think ultimately it does fall back on, like you said previously, it's about selecting the right courses, right programs for the people in your business to lead to impact and growth of that individual as well. So I can completely understand that, how things have blown up. Again, going back to a podcast that we've done previously this week, in terms of how people search for jobs is completely different now. Whereas I remember when I applied for my first job, it was a case of getting the CVs and walking around the local shops and hoping one of them would call me back. And how times have changed now where people are all on mobile devices and finding their jobs like that. Or like you said, ordering food, a delivery app now is the way to do that. Whereas before you might have picked up the phone book and found your local takeaway and called them up on the yellow pages. So I suppose it is about how your business is adapting to that digital change. In terms of retention, and have you noticed a trend where you're retaining people longer after they've completed a program?
Yeah, I think for us we really have. So the leisure industry has the same challenges around retention of team members as hospitality. Quite a lot of turnover. People come into our business and don't always see it as a career route. And for that means then you do have quite a high turnover. We're seeing an improvement on that with a lot of work we're doing on lots of different strands around our business. However, within apprenticeships, we know for a fact that actually about an average 76% over the last year, we've tracked that each month of people who have been with us and completed apprenticeship are still with us 2 years later. And that figure goes to about 56% once you look at 5 years. But actually 5 years after completing apprenticeship, they still feel that dedication to the business. And we are starting to see more and more people now go on after one apprenticeship. Maybe it's a bit of a breather, but then go on and do another one as well to be able to take their career and stretch their skill set to another level as well.
Which is great, because then you've got a clear pathway built from apprenticeships. They feel invested in, and why not stay with a business that's invested so much time and money into you? So absolutely, I think again you're seeing it more and more now of businesses reinvesting and building that clear pathway through the programs. In terms of skills gaps, how do you identify skills gaps? And again, you spoke about it a little bit in terms of really identifying areas of growth within individuals and gaps within the business, but how do you identify that and think actually a program can fix that issue for us?
For me, it's about working with the various different departments within our business in operations, products, etc. Looking at what's coming up, what their future plans are, looking at where our teams are. We do a lot of work anyway around kind of training needs analysis as we've started to build our internal career development pathways and add to those as a central team. So kind of building on that within the apprenticeship programs, what have we got that would work? And also then looking at actually how can we use them maybe as that career starter entry route for recruitment as well. So for us, I work with various different products around what's coming up, what programs have we got, are they a great fit? And then we would talk to at least 2 or 3 different providers before we make a decision about moving forward with the apprenticeship to make sure, again, as I say, a program can be available, but it's about that delivery style. What delivery style will work to be able to make that program successful for us?
Brilliant stuff. So in terms of your journey, 15 years of apprenticeships, how's the landscape changed? You've obviously seen the introduction of levy, you've seen policy changes in government. Talk us through that journey. How have you adapted and overcome them situations?
If I'm honest with you, I think when I started, I was in an employer with a direct grant holding. We were directly drawing down the funding from the government, and getting my head around fluctuating or changing policies was quite stressful. You really have to be really agile with how you work. And I think I've kind of just accepted over the years that that's the way it is. When it changes, you review, you reflect, and you adapt. And that is just the way it is. Potentially we're looking for, there's possibly some changes, more changes coming on the horizon. And for us, we're just going to have to wait and see what's decided. But in the background, we are already starting to think about what does that mean for us. So obviously there is speculation of changes in the degree apprenticeship route. Level 6 apprenticeship for us is really key. We have a number of people that started last year that are kind of A-level students within our business and that are doing degrees as part of a career progression. And that's fantastic. They've got an opportunity to do that alternative route to do their degree. And we absolutely are committed to continue with that wherever we can. And I think the key thing for us is around just being able to be part of the conversation in relation to feeding in and being able to have an employer voice. So there are lots of forums out there coming in asking for the employer's opinions and feedback to help shape that policy in the future as Skills England's developed. So it's about us feeding into, from our business perspective, where we feel that should go or where we feel that actually is not going to work. To make sure that we're part of that arena is really important. I actively support Trailblazer activity as well. So I've been involved in developing and reviewing the leisure duty management apprenticeship. And again, being able to make sure that the revision of these apprenticeships mean they're still going to add value and work for our business is really important.
Brilliant. So, leisure industry, what is kind of the impact of apprenticeships on it? Because you're quite a unique business with David Lloyd, because obviously you cover hospitality off in terms of you catering customers, then you've got the sports part of it, and then you've got kind of sales as well in there as well. How has it impacted the leisure industry as a whole, do you think?
There's been a real positive impact on the leisure industry. I think it's about getting the right programs that work for the leisure side of the business, if I'm honest with you, is the challenge. That's why it's really good to see some revisions to some of the programs such as leisure duty management. Being a manager in the leisure industry is more than just a general management role in any other business. So there is so much health and safety compliance to consider, because you've got the safety and responsibility of people. There are bespoke challenges around pools, etc., lifeguarding responsibilities, so it is very complex. So programs like that are really great because they do really add to that career pathway and progression and skills growth for people for this industry. I think as well there's a lots of programs around kind of sports coaching and stuff coming in. So working with SIMSPA and different bodies as well that are feeding in to shape the future programs is going to do nothing but actually add to that value moving forward. For us as a business though, as you said, there are various different roles, so we fit under lots of different categories, and that in itself means that it is quite complex. We work with a wide range of providers to make sure that we can have programs that will fit the different departments within our business. So childcare, early careers for our crash teams, through to our leisure duty management. We talked about talking to management for our HODs, but then hospitality programs, chef programs. We have project management programs available. We have some people, we say, doing this content creation. So a really wide range of programs available across our business.
So as a general message, I know we spoke about it a little bit, but in the next 5 years, what additional support would you like from maybe certain bodies or government level in terms of supporting the continued growth of apprenticeships and talent?
I think for me, to ensure that we're consistent and continue to support apprenticeships the way we need to, is I do think some flexibilities on functional skills. I feel that does disadvantage some individuals if maths and English are not really their strength, or they've struggled with that previously at school. That can really put people off joining an apprenticeship, but also it can really hamper somebody getting their apprenticeship. So I think there does need to be a review of that part of it. There is lots of discussions around the value of keeping degree apprenticeships and who should be able to do those. And I think from a kind of social economic growth perspective, not everyone had the opportunity, or financially or different circumstances, to do a degree. And I think that actually the skills that it brings for people to be able to do that is really, really important. So I think degree programs are fantastic as an alternative route to the traditional university route. I think they're going to be a massive piece, I think, for our business and many of others out there. And as you say, they won't give people that debt, but they will give them the skills, that actual job role as well, to apply their learning and growth. But I do think that they also apply great skills and progression for people at different stages of their career as well. So for us, it's kind of career starter, career development, or even career changing apprenticeships. And for me, that's the point, is that people change careers more now than they ever have. And actually they can really support that vocational learning and qualifications along the way as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with any of that, to be honest. I think it's really important for, especially around the functional skills, to get that additional support, because at the minute it is one of the biggest roadblocks I hear when talking to some of Remit's partners. And I think, again, that support from government would go a long way, because then not only, like you said, it's people that haven't had the opportunity or might have found that daunting earlier on in their life, and it's giving them that chance to get that learning that is so fundamental. And I think it's kind of an idea we've looked again in the automotive space, because it's predominantly what Remit operates in, just showing the application of mathematics to how they would use it in their actual job role. And I think once we sync that up, it kind of could open up an opportunity for the learner to think, oh, actually, yeah, that learning is something that I'm going to directly apply to my job role. So maybe something around kind of how you can use indirect learnings. Again, I've mentioned it previously myself, English and copywriting, it was a weakness for myself at school, but actually I use that every day now in terms of creating copy for social content. So I think that's really fundamentally important. National insurance changes. Can we talk about that? Does that directly impact your business?
Absolutely. I think like every business, the change in national insurance policy will have a massive impact on us. We've already seen, though, the impact that the Category H national insurance reductions for apprentices can have on a business, but it hasn't ultimately changed our strategy. We have an apprenticeship strategy around growing and continuing to invest in the development of our teams through the levy and through apprenticeships as a route. It's not a one-size-fits-all. So for me, it's not everybody, apprenticeship isn't right for everyone, but we've already seen that can add benefits. So for us, we're continuing on that growth strategy. We will continue to highlight the benefits, obviously, of the national insurance reductions and discounts for relevant candidates under 25, but it won't directly change our approach over the next year.
Brilliant. I know that's a very sensitive subject because some businesses that I've worked with are making redundancies due to the impact. When you've got 1,000 people plus, it becomes very difficult, and that change can mean quite a large impact on payroll. So I admire that you guys are sticking to your strategy and it's working, and that's brilliant. So what would you like to see from the programme? How do you see it continue to grow and develop in the next few years?
I think for me, there's some exciting things on the horizon. So the recognition of kind of UCAS points and accreditation behind doing an apprenticeship, like you would with another qualification, that for me is going to be, it evens the playing field. I think it gets people to try and see and change that perception of apprenticeships a little bit. So I'm really excited to see what that comes. And I think there's a lot of work going on to look at where we can have maybe shorter apprenticeships or more flexible apprenticeships, because people's work patterns these days are very different. So I think, again, that is really exciting to see how all that unfolds.
Yeah, and I think, again, such as the leisure industry, something like a shorter apprenticeship would be really beneficial, just around work patterns, or maybe if you've got part-time workers, how that would work. So absolutely. Is there any success stories you want to share, particular learners possibly? You don't have to mention any names, but kind of a journey that you've seen, because you've been with David Lloyd and you've seen, I'm sure, many learners pass through program. Have they gone to a more senior position, maybe gone into an RM position possibly? Or
I think not necessarily through apprenticeships at this point. I suppose I think that's to come for us as the stage in the journey that we're on. But I certainly have seen quite a few of our team members go through and be progressed through their apprenticeship. So they've got an apprenticeship, they've completed it, they've applied their learning really well, they've then moved up. They may have even moved clubs, and I think for me that's really great to see. And then you can see they become ambassadors, so they go into a new club, a new role, and then they get back into touch with you, and they've been talking to their teams about apprenticeships and how can they get involved. So we're really starting to see that ripple effect of that. Previous apprenticeships becoming ambassadors, driving through that message and that engagement across the board, and we're really excited about that. We have our first people started to finish their degree. So again, this is kind of the start of that journey to see how that impacts their growth and their progression moving forward. So I think for me, it's just, there's so many I could mention, but there's not necessarily one I'll kind of highlight at this point. But I think really for me is the certain individuals have struggled with things like maths. Some of them, it's a case of juggling that around family commitments, etc. as well. But the perseverance that they put in, and then the joy of seeing them on that graduation, get that certificate, and actually hear what is meant to them personally, as well as hear from their managers around the impact that they've had on the business, is crazy. It's just really, really rewarding. And
I definitely felt that on the day, talking and interviewing some of the apprentices, just how proud they was, and some even saying that they were more proud with the David Lloyd experience than actually getting their degree. I remember one particular learner who had done a degree previously and said, I didn't feel this proud on my graduation day for my university, but then I think it's a different sense of pride, isn't it, I suppose? Because like you said, you juggle the work, you then see the direct impact straight away, whereas coming out of university, you might be looking for a couple of months for a job to see a direct return of your hard work, but you're actually seeing that hard work day in and day out. which I think is so important. And again, it's why I love the apprenticeship space so much, because you actually get that experience with learners. You're talking to them and you can see how satisfied they are and how better they feel about doing their actual job, and you see that confidence when you're interviewing them as well. So talking about pain points a little bit. So pain points in the hospitality industry and the leisure industry in terms of how can apprenticeships kind of solve some of them pain points?
I think one of the key things that they can impact on industries like ours that struggle with things such as retention is giving people that clear route for progression. So if you have either existing team or recruited in team that are on an apprenticeship, it changes their perception as they're being invested in, and gives them some element of career progression that makes them feel part of it. If you've recruited someone in and they're on a structured training program with apprenticeship is in there, that's a long-term program. So at the moment, obviously, every apprenticeship has to be no less than a year and a day plus endpoint assessment. So actually, you've kind of got, if you've got their buy-in and they're getting a great experience and they're invested in your business, you've automatically got at least that length of that apprenticeship, and hopefully more after that, because they feel invested in and then maybe want to go and do something else. So for me, it's about trying to change that perception of the industries as career routes and giving some of those opportunities, but actually the investment through the recognised qualifications and the apprenticeship as part of that, that kind of gives people kind of a clear time frame to try and keep that engagement going through, and we're starting to see that real benefit.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. Like you mentioned, the retention, you want to invest in people and keep them people ultimately. So and I think you guys clearly demonstrate how you do that with the number of programs that you offer to the learners. Let's talk about accidental leadership, because I think that's quite important, and it's a term used in management quite a lot. So you've talked about the selection process, and I know I did a particular interview with I think it was Stephen Manley, yeah, and he mentioned, these are the future leaders of David Lloyd. How does that selection process work? What's kind of the process is, and how do you really select, you putting the right candidate on program?
So for us at the moment under management, we've probably got 3 key programs that are driving the upskill in leadership and management. Separate to the head of department team leader management program is one of those programs that's key. For us, there's an element of, for that program, we have expressions of interest. So why does somebody want to do that program? Their commitment to it. And then for us, it's around their line management engagement as well, and making sure their job role will give them the access to the right activities and exposure and opportunities to be able to grow. And then we kind of do a kind of a sense check with the managers to make sure that that's all approved. Then taking them through actually what does that program include, what are the commitment requirements to them, so they really understand what does that next kind of 12 to 15 months of their program look like. We also have a leisure duty management apprenticeship, which is not run in cohorts, so people can apply for this one at any point in time. And this one is around they need to be able to be training to or already starting to become our duty management and lead shifts within the business. And I think probably our other third most popular one at the moment around management currently would be the Level 6 Chartered Management Programme, which we've got about 9 people on and learning at the moment. So again, that one being a degree, there is an element of quite a lot of criteria, the number of hours they work, again ensuring those key things, I suppose, job roles correct, the line managers on board and understand what they need to be able to do, because they can drive their learning within the clubs, and also ensure then that we've got that real structured process to what does it look like month by month for that individual.
Yeah, great. So in terms of early years now, talking to general workforce, people that have just maybe entered David Lloyd, what does kind of that early career look like in terms of joining the David Lloyd team to possibly going on to apprenticeship? What's that journey like?
It would differ depending on the individual and where they come in. So for us, we've got about 40 different apprenticeship programs on offer across our operational teams within clubs and our club support head office teams. So there really is a wide range. But again, it's looking at that individual. Either if we're recruiting them in, we'll recruit them in on a specific apprenticeship and we'll already have aligned what the right route for them to be is. If they're an existing team member at the end of their probation, there'll probably be a discussion around are they interested in apprenticeship and what would they like to do? And then it's back to that process, evaluating what their role is going to be, what programs would be suitable for that role, and having those conversations with them and their line manager and sometimes their general manager as well. We run a lot of information calls. We will do one-to-one calls where we need to with clubs and answer any questions that the team member and the line manager may have to be able to support them.
Great. In terms of Remit, what kind of tools do offer? So do you guys use Power BI, I'm sure, to track learners? What kind of tools are available and how has that helped you build the best program possible?
So some of the key things are, so Remit have a great BI dashboard tool which we can drill into. It shows us the progress of our learners. It shows us our on track for success rates. So again, as much as we've grown, for me, it's not just a numbers game. Yes, we want to be growing people on program, but we also want to make sure that then you don't have people drop off because it's not the right program for them or leaving the business. So it's about that ultimate success rate. How many people have started or finishing? And that's something we're working on as a business at the moment. So for me, be able to track that and to see what that potential is looking like is really important. Having those discussions about learners or any learner concerns being raised are really, really important, and the accounts team support. I think also for me as well, the curriculum support, so working with the curriculum team to make sure that what's coming up on the delivery, does that really work for us? Do we need to adjust a module to further down the line because actually would naturally be covering some of that anyway, so that that experience is right with everybody. When you have a wide range of providers, it's really important that the providers that you work with give you accurate data so that we can pull that together. The more accurate my information is, the more accurate the information is I can give back to my business and teams and really engage them, and for them to understand how their apprentices are getting on, what are they doing next month, etc. So that's really important. Yeah,
I think for me, it's been a great conversation, really eye-opening in terms of how David Lloyd has adapted and kind of implemented apprenticeships. And I think, again, because you have worked with Remit to build out the HOD programs, I think it's really important to kind of talk about how tailoring can be so important to a business like David Lloyd, because no business is the same, really. And a lot of people will be quick to grab an off-the-shelf training, but I don't think, and again, I'm sure you agree, that that's often not the solution. You have to tailor a program, otherwise learners won't be engaged because it's not fit, because it's learnings that might not particularly directly impact the business. So I suppose, what are kind of the key take-ins from a tailored program that have helped your learners stay engaged?
So I think that I've always been an ambassador of actually being able to contextualise the programs to make sure they're a good fit. There are some programs, if you're doing them in smaller numbers, you'll naturally as an employer have an off-the-shelf program. You can't necessarily always interject and amend them, and it does take more time, so it does take some dedicated resource. But actually the benefit of the relevance to their role, using terminology that they're likely to use within the business rather than something very generic that they may not necessarily understand how that fits. Coming up with examples of activities that are going to easily be recognised by the learner on programme as something within our business and how they will do things, processes, etc. All of that really, really helps. And then also being able to look at what the criteria is, and then being able to say, well, actually, this is our process. Yes, that works. And sometimes it's just, the curriculum team have been great just to be able to put a little bit of definition after what their standard question would be to enhance it. Some of it we've been able to kind of just naturally pull out activities that we're doing. And what it means for an individual is, this is relevant to me. I can see where I'm going to apply this learning. I can see actually how all of this criteria makes sense. Whereas sometimes what I think I found previously is that they saw that their job role and their development here and their apprenticeship as a separate bolt-on. They didn't necessarily see that they both worked hand in hand. And because the apprenticeship is contextualised and relevant to what they're doing and to their career pathway and the skills they need to be able to come ready for that next role, that's where you really see the difference. I would also say, though, is that we're really lucky that we have worked really closely with our senior teams within the business to engage them in apprenticeships. Our people director is really passionate about apprenticeships. So every stage of the business, apprenticeships are a part of a discussion now. You know, every time that we go to the board meetings, we have updates on apprenticeships and what's working well, you know, what around, if we've got a new program or results and updates on programs. So that conversation is a constant discussion around the business. It's not just an ad hoc.
I think, yeah, I mean, it's so important to get that board level buy-in, otherwise the program will never grow ultimately. And I think my final question for yourself is, why is it so important that we invest in our people?
The world is changing. If you do not invest in people, everyone gets a bit fed up. They want to feel invested. People want to grow and grow new skills. So the world has changed. People are learning things on a day-to-day basis, whether it's a YouTube video, whether it's TikTok, all sorts of stuff now. There's constant desire for people to learn new skills, new ways, new techniques. And at some point, to keep people engaged, that has to happen. You have to create that culture where learning just becomes part of day-to-day. And for me, that's part of it. And apprenticeships is one of those key routes to that. It's not the only route. But for me, I think they really do bring together a great way to grow those skills. And I've loved seeing the evolution, if you like, of the way we deliver apprenticeships as well now. So bringing in some of these newer ways of learning. So short, sharp little videos like TikTok example learnings for people, or listening to podcasts. You know, it's not just to sit down, read a document or a workbook, or listen to this lecture online. There are so many different ways now that we can engage and be really creative with our learning approach to get people involved.